wanted to highlight this style of Chinese martial arts called Shuai Jiao. And as you guys can see in these clips, it's very much a grappling based style. They do a lot of supplemental training with the belt. They do a lot of twisting motions, a lot of back steps, and those are ways to kind of enter into your opponent's center of gravity, get underneath their center, and also employ two hands at the same time. If you guys know about Okinawan karate, that's meo tole, husband-wife hand, and using these belt cracking techniques are a great way to reinforce those concepts. And another reason why I want to highlight this style is that even though they emphasize throws and takedowns, a lot of their forms look like forms in Okinawan karate. So I just want to show a couple examples, and it'll help you kind of see how even the movements that we do in karate that can be seen as strikes are mirrored here in a grappling art and is interpreted as throws. So the first example here, he steps forward and does an open palm strike, very similar to Kata. And keep an eye on that front hand actually. It actually circles from inside out, kind of like moving something out of the way, and then the trailing hand pushes forward. And what you see here is an extremely stylized version of Kata. It's done in performance at a tournament. But what's interesting is the artifacts of the practicality of it still remains, right? So his front hand circles from inside out. He takes a step forward, and then he pushes with his trailing arm. So the standard karate interpretation of this is pretty self-explanatory. Attacker comes in, tries to strike you. You move that strike out of the way, deliver an open palm strike to his heart, hopefully exploding in the process and leaving him dead on the ground. Surprisingly, he stays standing. So with the Shuai Jiao interpretation of this technique, you are still circling the opponent's hand out of the way. From there, you're actually going to step forward and put your right leg behind his front leg and use that as a way to trip him as you push him over your leg. So again, same movement, different interpretation. The open palm becomes a shoulder check to off-balance your opponent rather than using it as a strike. Moving on to the next example. So I've seen some really interesting interpretations of what people call this double block, where one goes up and one goes down. And that actually kind of segues into another thing about semantics, right? So it's hard to teach and pass down knowledge without labeling something. But once you call these motions with the arms as blocks, then it kind of boxes them into a certain interpretation, right? Or you could call them double back fists, or striking one to the head and striking one to the groin or one to the gut. I've seen a lot of different types of options for that. But if you break it down to what your body is actually doing, take away all the labels, take away all the names for these techniques. You could think in this image here, the individual is crouching down, his right hand is raised up around head level. It looked like it scooped up from his waist and went up. The other hand is at the waist, kind of like pulling in or chambered. The next movement here, whoa, the group steps up, feet together, and essentially switches the positions of their arm, where the other hand now is down and the other hand is pointed up towards the ceiling. Now looking at this Shuai Jiao movement, the posture is pretty similar. Crouched down, one hand's pointed up towards the ceiling, the other hand's pointed down. And then he actually continues on and does it to the other side. And this can be an exercise, down the line. The interpretation here, you receive the strike, you pull the arm down, and then you hook it with your other hand, the one pointing towards the ceiling. Your step up is actually a trip that takes the person behind you. Alright, shameless plug time. So I'm building a website to try to catalog all these kata breakdowns and also build a community, have a discussion forum, have articles by members and stuff, and really create a one-stop shop. So this is still in the preliminary phase, but if you go to karatebreakdown.com, sign up for that newsletter, and you'll get notifications when the site is live to join. And this is really about bringing back practical karate with emphasis on kata applications for self-defense. Alright, moving on. So I'm going to make these pretty quick. So this kata here, Wansu, has a backstep, and usually in karate, when you backstep, you're usually rotating and turning. And when you rotate and turn in combat, most likely you're taking somebody over your shoulder, you're throwing them, or you're twisting them all the way to the ground. Now again, these movements, Shuai Jiao has a backstep with the turn, and it's a little more obvious here that you could tell that's kind of like a hip toss turn. Get low, backstep, hip toss, and turn. Another one, low, backstep, hip toss, and throw. And all these are examples of places in Shuai Jiao that you're actually backstepping. So this next one here looks like a fireman's carry, lift a person up, arms swing over the head, and the interpretation looks very similar to that as well. So alright, so this is a Yamatsuki, the mountain punch, right? Interpreted as a punch low then punch high, whereas here it's being used kind of like a throw. Here, reach out, block the leg, push the person over, or grab the belt, roll them over as well. Here you see slapping the foot with the hand before pushing the person over. Can be a hook with the leg, feeding their leg to your hand, or just sweeping them over from standing. And you could definitely see a stylized version of that in Kata's like Rohai. Alright, so this one's pretty cool. A lot of people interpret the nukite or their spear hand as like piercing through somebody, which of course can't really happen. You can also use that as a way to dig for the underhook. But in Shuai Jiao, they have a uniform, a coat that they always wear for practice. And in this application, it's actually used to grab the lapel of the coat to take the guy over. Alright, so this last one looks straight up like Seisan to me. Bring everything together and shoot the arm straight out. It's as if you're going underneath their center, blasting all the way through them.